Hey everyone, Milkshake here. Today we are going to be looking at our very first Genshin Impact character review, and in this review we'll be looking at Yun Jin. Okay, so yeah, I love her so much, not only because of how much she fits my playstyle, but also the amount of representation of Chinese culture that she brings. So without further ado, let's talk about her. Okay, so Yun Jin is a 4-star Geo Pro-Arm user from Liyue, of which she is affiliated to the Yunhan Opera Troupe and the He Yu Tea House. Unlike other characters, she is voiced by 2 voice actors, one for her speaking voice and the other for her opera voice. In English, she is voiced by Judy Ellis Lee, who voiced many other characters such as Sarah from the Call of Duty series and Kras from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. As for Japanese, she is voiced by Kotori Koiwai, who voiced many other characters such as Mari from Mob Psycho and Yuki Funahara from Psycho Pass. Finally, the opera singer Yang Yang voiced all of Yun Jin's singing parts. Alright, so let's move on to Yun Jin's details. Well, I mean, it is no surprise that her design is based on Peking or Beijing Chinese opera. Okay, so initially I did feel that her opera voice doesn't really suit her body, but after going through the Archon quest and her hangout, I guess I can let this slide because she is really cute during the hangout, especially this one. Yeah, this is the best Yun Jin hangout ending ever. Also, Chinese opera isn't really my cup of tea. Like whenever I hear those moments where they get very high pitched, it kind of makes my skin crawl like a bit. but it is so rare to have this particular aspect of Chinese culture being represented other than Kung Fu and Tai Chi, you know, especially in a worldwide game like Genshin Impact. So yeah, that is really awesome, and yeah, good job MiHoYo. Okay, so anyway, the flags that appear in Yun Jin's elemental skill and burst is a nod to the flags worn by imperials or military personnel in the actual Chinese opera. As for her headgear, yes, I know, it does look like the tricolor dango, but the overall hat is actually a reference to the hat worn in Chinese opera. Other than just performing, Yun Jin is also a playwright. She has written a play called The String of Pearls, which spans across 5 books. Yes, I read the whole thing, and let's just say I am very impressed. Okay, so something about Yun Jin that I really love is her theme of clouds. This is because of her name, with Yun meaning cloud in Chinese. On the other hand, Jing means pansy, which is a genus of violet flower. Her name can also be a homonym of Yun Jin, which refers to the luxurious silk robe usually worn by emperors. Other references to clouds include her elemental skill, which does have a cloud effect after she swings her spear, the Yunhan Society, which means writings of the clouds, and the buff she gives after triggering her elemental burst is called Flying Cloud Flag Formation. As for her constellation, Opera Grandis means great work in Latin. This could be a reference to her hard work as an opera singer and her title of director of the Yunhan Opera Troupe. Okay, so let's now talk about her skills. Her normal attack consists of 5 consecutive strikes, and yeah, there really isn't much to say about it other than her posing at the end of her 4th and 5th attack, which is really cool. Her elemental skill, Opening Flourish, deals geo damage that scales with her defense. You can either tap it or hold it to unleash an even stronger strike, depending on how long you hold it. So when you hold it, there are 2 charges, level 1 and level 2. During her charging phase, she generates a shield that can absorb damage that scales on her HP. It also has 150% effectiveness against physical and elemental damage. Oh, and once you unlock her passive talent True to Oneself, she can unleash her Charge 2 form when you activate her skill at the precise moment when she is attacked, very similar to Peito's counter mechanic. Now, what I like about this skill is that the shield she creates basically earns you a free hit. I did a test with Margot Genki and she can absorb his very ridiculous AoE cryo attack when I was charging her elemental skill. So whenever you're in a pinch, you can always swap out, hold that elemental skill and let her shield absorb that damage. Also, when farming for the wolf boss, aka Eternatus, she can charge up these like wolf head thingies in one hit from a full charge elemental skill, which is very cool. Okay, so now onto what I believe is Yun Jin's specialty, which is her elemental burst, specifically the Flying Cloud Flag Formation. With this buff, all normal attack damage dealt will increase based on her current defense. This buff does have a trigger quota of 30 regardless of the talent level. Even though this quota is independent for each party member, it is a bit of a struggle to have all your party members benefit from this buff because it only lasts 12 seconds. Though it really depends on how you manage it, honestly. But what is great about it is its relatively low energy cost of 60, which complements with her natural ascension of energy recharge. After unlocking her second passive, the buff gets boosted further depending on how varied your party elements are. Okay, so I think that every character can benefit from this buff because everyone has normal attacks. But depending on playstyles and character gimmicks, some characters will benefit more than others. I think the most obvious character is Yoimiya because she often uses normal attacks as her main source of damage. So, how good is it exactly? Well, let's find out. For this test, I will be using my Yoimiya, who is at level 80 at Ascension 5. She has 72.3% crit rate, 125.4% crit damage, and 61.6 pyro damage bonus. She will be using the Rust at Refinement 2, and her artifacts are 2-piece Crimson Witch and 2-piece Glad. She is also at Constellation 0, and her normal attacks are at level 8. As for Yun Jin, there is a slight variation to her stats because I did level her artifacts recently. But I did take note of her stats before she was leveled, and in the test her defense was like 1951. She is at level 70 at Ascension 4 and her elemental burst is at level 6. Her artifact set is Husk and she is at C2, which further increases the normal attack damage of nearby party members when her buff activates. For these tests, I'll be fighting Magu Genki, so here is test 1 and 2 without the buff. And here is test 1 and 2 with the buff. Okay, so I've tabulated the data as you can see here, and the ones in red represent the crits. Yeah, I know, I did land a lot of crits. Anyway, even though I was unable to get the final hit in Yun Jin's buff test 2 because of the ridiculous Mago Genki attack range, the total damage was already a lot higher than test 1 without the buff and with the same number of crits. So if we were to take the highest damage from when the buff is absent and with the buff, there was a 33.13% increase in total damage, which is pretty good. So yeah, Yoimiya definitely benefits from Yun Jin. But Aka, I hear you saying, I don't have Yoimiya. So does that mean my Yun Jin is useless? Well, I'm glad you asked because I also tested Yun Jin's buff on other characters that I feel can benefit a lot from it. The first is physical DPS Fischl. For this test, I won't be using Oz because I have her at C1, which makes recording of the specific numbers in this test really difficult because Oz attacks with her. I mean, come on, how am I supposed to read this? Anyway, my Fischl is at level 80 and at Ascension 5. She has 40.4% crit rate, 121.5% crit damage, and 108.3% physical damage bonus. She will also be using the Rust at Refinement 2, and her artifacts are 2-piece Bloodstain and 2-piece Pale Flame. She is at C5 and her normal attack is at level 8. With the same Yun Jin stats in the Yoimiya test, here is test 1 and test 2 without the buff. And here is test 1 and 2 with the buff. Okay, so with this data, we can see a massive increase in max total damage by 88.99%. Now it may be slightly biased because I landed more crits in test 2 with Yun Jin's buff, so let's look at each of her attacks without the crits, except for the fourth one because I only have her buff crit damage. So as you can see, there is a pretty substantial increase in damage dealt, especially in her initial hit. Do also take note that this doesn't take Oz's joint attack into account, so the numbers here are subjected to increase. Overall, Fischl is another candidate that can definitely benefit along with Yun Jin. In the lore, Yun Jin is a big fan of rock and roll, and she's close friends with Xin Yan, so I've decided to pair them up and see how well they work together. In this test, my Xin Yan is at level 50 and at Ascension 3, she has 40.4% crit rate, 121.5% crit damage, and 108.3% physical damage bonus. She'll be using the Wolf Gravestone because why not? And her artifacts are 2-piece Bloodstain and 2-piece Pale Flame. She is at C2 and her normal attack is at level 4. Again, with the same Yun Jin, here is test 1 and test 2 without the buff. And here is test 1 and 2 with the buff. Okay, so as you can see, even though there is a slight increase from the highest damage values from the test, the fact that test 1 with Yun Jin's buff can compete with test 1 without the buff and with more crits is insane. Now I believe these values can potentially increase further after Xin Yan unlocks her second passive that boosts her physical damage when she uses her shield. So yeah, Xin Yan can also potentially reap the amazing benefits of Yun Jin, and since they are best friends, why not pair them together? Overall, I'd say Yun Jin is indeed a good support to have, especially to those who often use characters that are focused on normal attacks. Of course, I highly recommend pairing her with Yoimiya since normal attacks are her gimmick and where most of her damage comes from. However, other characters like physical Xin Yan and physical Fischl can also definitely work well with Yun Jin. There are also other characters that I think will work nice in theory, like Noelle in her outstate together with the double Geo resonance that boosts damage dealt when shielded. I would really love to test this out, but I don't have a good Husk set for Noelle at the moment because RNG. Another character that can potentially benefit is physical DPS Razor, who sadly I do not have even after playing this game for a year, so I can't really test him out. Okay, so what about Constellations? Honestly, I think they are really good because it further boosts her support capabilities. Her C1 decreases her cooldown of her skill, so instead of 9 seconds, it becomes around 7.3 seconds. The cooldown is the same for both the tap and hold skill, which is really neat. Her second Constellation increases the normal attack boost further, which is very nice. Constellation 4 is rather meh, but I think her final Constellation is very good because it increases attack speed of your normal attacks together with the normal attack damage boost. As for Artefacts, I personally prefer the Husk because of the 2-piece that increases her defense, and because she's not on the field most of the time, she can gain that defense boost even further. Another possible build is 2-piece Husk and 2-piece Emblem because having energy recharge is really good if you want basically zero downtime of her elemental burst. Finally, for weapons, since she is a support character, I highly recommend the Favonius Lance because it gives her energy recharge. Even though the catch also has energy recharge, I feel that the passive is better suited to someone else like Raiden or Xiangling. For free-to-play options, the prototype Star Glitter will be amazing on Yun Jin. Okay, so here are all my thoughts about Yun Jin. I really enjoy her because I use Yoimiya quite a lot. So anyway, I wouldn't say that she is very niche because every single character can perform normal attacks, so it really comes down to the character's gimmick and their playstyle. If you do find yourself using a lot of normal attacks and it is your main source of damage compared to like your elemental skill and burst, then Yun Jin will be a fantastic addition to your party because she does her job really well. So yeah, there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do leave a like if you guys did, subscribe for more awesome content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.